City won the treble. Welcome back to another video. How you doing, guys? City didn't move with the treble. Never going to stop saying that. Riyad Mahrez could be leaving Manchester City Football Club. Absolutely not the news that any of us wants to read tonight, but it looks like it could be happening. I'm going to go live with you guys and chat a little bit about that breaking news. Unfortunately, it looks like it could be actually true. Very interesting news. Of course, after the back of that treble, we always thought there could be a shake-up or so because, you know, once you've reached the very top, you could be basically about to see a bit of a change from Manchester City, and it could be that Riyad Mahrez moves on this summer, and especially when he's got potentially a generational, life-changing amount of money that he could be offered. Now, of course, I would like to say if you are a fan of this kind of content and Manchester City content, please do consider supporting the channel. Consider giving this video a big old like, and of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Not far off 67k. It'd be nice to get there very, very, very soon. Please do hit the subscribe button. It would be absolutely immense. So why have I gone live? The breaking news tonight is come from Mr. Fabrizio Romano. Of course, this guy knows a thing or two about transfers. And he tweeted out about half an hour ago, says, understand Al-Ahli have submitted an official contract bid to Riyad Mahrez. Negotiations are underway on the player side. Al-Ittihad, I don't know how to pronounce that, I'm so sorry. It sounds like saying Al-Ittihad. Not in the race now, it's Al-Ahli on it. Manchester City would require a fee to let Mahrez leave. Talks expected to continue soon. So basically, there was all these rumours about a Saudi club being potentially interested, but now it looks like an official contract bid has been submitted to Mahrez via the Saudis. Now, of course, you don't know what's going on here. The Saudi government are essentially investing an awful lot of money in their league. To basically attract some of the best players in world football, then it's sort of parking these players at various clubs. It looks like it's sort of like being done above them, if that makes sense. It's like a draft by the Saudi government to give to their players to their sides. And it looks like Al-Ahli could have Riyad Mahrez potentially in their side for the next year. Now, of course, this has come from Fabrizio, and I expect this is right. He's obviously knows what's going on here. It obviously makes sense. It's obviously true. How far, if it'll happen or not, we don't know. But this is obviously not bullshit. You know, some things just. If it looks like a spade, what's that saying? Call a spade a spade. Or if it looks like a fish, smells like a fish, acts like a fish, it's probably a fish. You know, in general, this is probably going to happen. If the transfer makes sense, if the player potentially could be interested in it, and it just makes sense. So basically, it looks like Mahrez could be moving on, and it's interesting. You know, City where we're at the moment. You know, you look at the likes of, you know, Laporte potentially going. Gundo and Bernardo's futures aren't settled yet. Good chat. One of them's going to go. I don't know which one, but one of them will go, in my opinion. Then Mahrez as well. And then there's rumours today that, you know, Phillips could be allowed to go if he wants to. He might not do. Maybe Palmer could move on. It looks like we could see an awful lot of change this summer. And when my head is at with this, I sort of expect it. I chatted, of course, to Asan this morning on a long video. Go watch that if you want to. If you want, that's the saying, Jonathan. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But I do think this is sort of natural after a treble. You're going to have to sort of reset again because it's almost necessary. I think, to be honest, I think Mahrez is probably going to accept this as well. Like, I would never like to shit stir and stuff, but I would be very surprised if Mahrez was not very disappointed by not being involved, not getting a minute in any of those big games, because he's such a good player. He's been excellent for us. You know, obviously he took there was a slight adaptation period at Manchester City, but he got there and he's been amazing for a long time for Man City now. But he's 32 years old. He's got 2 years on his contract left. 2 years in his contract left, 32 years old, and he was very much out of the team, you know. I like that. If he dances a lot, he drinks a lot, and parties a lot, he's probably a Jack Grealish. It's probably true, actually, yeah. But yeah, anyway, back to Mahrez. At this point, I wouldn't be disappointed by this happening because I'd understand where he'd be coming from potentially. Like, Mahrez is a quality player. It would be a blow to our squad experience because Mahrez is very popular. He is settled here in general. I think he wants to play, but I don't think he's been kicking, you know, a fuss or anything like that. Probably the odd little moan here to Guardiola, but you can tell he's popular amongst these players, amongst the other players, and this feels to me like something that is probably a good idea for everyone involved. I reckon that if they're going to offer him an awful lot of money, I think City will ask for 40, 50 million. I think they will, and I think they'd probably get it as well because, look, you got to look, there's many reasons that this would make sense for, you know, Al-Ahli. He's one of the most, you know, popular Muslim players in world football. It is, of course, an Islamic state, you know, like it is. that stuff does matter, of course. You know, religion's a huge part of the world over there. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that plays into it a tiny bit. Mahrez is a superstar, and he'd be a massive boon for that league. And the thing is, as well, like his age as well. He's not like old as such, but he's not young. He could think, well, I've not got loads of time at the very top of the game, and even if just accept 2 years there and get, I don't know how much he'd be getting, but he probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple 100 million over 2 years or something stupid like that. If he does, you're looking at what he's earned throughout his career in 2 years. You know, it's stupid amount of money. It's sort of like doubling your money on your career, basically. And at that point, can anyone really blame him? Like, you just can't, can you? Because it makes an awful lot of sense for everyone involved. So, it would be disappointing. It would be a setback because I'm a firm believer in that experience is everything, isn't it? Like, well, Benzema, there you go. Buster Gina said in the comments, Benzema said he's moved because he's Muslim. It makes a lot of sense. But I'm a firm believer in experience being absolutely vital. Like it is. It just is. It's not exactly it's shocking to say that. You can't just replace them constantly with young players because at some point you need the ones who are there because Riyad Mahrez is not phased in a big game because he's been there, done that, and he's Riyad Mahrez, you know. And this is why, like, no, exactly, of course I would, Jake, yeah. But this is why, like, even though the likes of Rico Lewis and all that played early on, eventually when the push came to shove, it was Walker and Stones. And Bernardo back into the team as well. It's the same ones as always because they're the ones who've done it, you know. They're the ones who are still there. And Riyad is still quality. So I get it. I get why you might go, but I also get at the same time, it's just a lot. It's a lot to move on potentially. Mohammed with the super chat said at this point we'll have a whole new squad next season. For maybe it doesn't feel like it is. That's not even a crazy thing to say, man, does it? Yeah, I mean, look, to be honest, maybe it's just the natural ending of this cycle. Like, I mean, a treble is a very good bouncing off point for a lot of people. It's a mic drop. I'm done. See you later. Right off into the sunset kind of moment, innit? And the sunset could be a beautiful Saudi Arabian one for Riyad Mahrez, you know, or Gundogan, it could be Barcelona, or Bernardo, it could be the Parisian sunset. I don't know. But either way, I wouldn't blame a lot of these players for feeling that if they fancy another change, this is a perfect time to move on because it isn't going to get much better. And I know because I was there. It isn't going to get much better in football than that parade the other day. Like, that was just cathartic. That was the perfect moment. Yep, the end of the beginning, essentially. Yeah, my food. Exactly. So this is the thing. Like, right now, we're looking at Morris potentially leaving. Look, if we got 40, 50 million for him, that would be wonderful. And then, of course, look, in general, I think Mahrez is a cracking player. But I do think there are some slight signs of him slowing down. That's not a criticism. It's just, I think it's natural. I'm tired today, by the way. Ignore me. I'm done in from football. Absolutely done me in. The last few days have done me in. But, you know, in general, I do think there were some slight signs of him slowing down. Maybe not as crucial as he used to be. Still immense amounts of quality and I'd love him to be around. But I think if it's a deal that could suit an awful lot of people. If City brought in a young winger, I don't know who it would be. I have no idea who it would be. But if City, you know, could bring in a young winger that would fit the bill and be the next guy to take over from this. Because I think we're going to need a winger, by the way. We are, as P. Elder said in the chat, we need 2 more wingers. Well, if Mahrez goes and Phil moves centrally, which everything seems to imply that Phil's going centrally, all of a sudden, all you've got left is Jack Grealish and Cole Palmer. If Palmer's even here, but only one senior one there, basically. But that's if Bernardo goes. Like, if Bernardo goes, which he might do, all of a sudden you got no right wingers, you know? And even then, Nam just said McAtee right wing next season. Look, McAtee coming in. I love James McAtee. Literally, James, if you watch this, mate, I love you, pal. But I mean this with the greatest respect. I know James watches these videos every now and then, but I mean this with the greatest respect to James McAtee. I don't think he thinks he would be the direct replacement for Riyad Mahrez. Like, he's the kind of guy you want to come in to rotate with Mahrez. Like, you need a more experienced player. You need a guy with Champions League experience. You need a guy who's been there and done it. Maybe you don't, by the way. I'm not saying it wouldn't be possible, but it'd be a little bit naive because young players, well, any young player, they have drops off in form, and this is why the senior ones come in. So, as much as McAtee is excellent, and I think and hope he will be around next season, we can't lean on him. You know, you can rely on him, but you can't lean on him. You know, like eventually, if you keep leaning on someone who's young, they're gonna buckle because they're young, unless you're truly, truly, truly lucky or truly special. But that's very, very, very hard. You know, it's very, very hard. We're going to need a winger. I agree with Pavel. Pavel said we lost Zinchenko, Jesus Sterling, got Haaland, Alvarez, Kanji, and one treble. We'll be fine. True, but we also still did have the experience of, you know, Mahrez, Gundo, Bernardo, Rodri, Diaz, Edison, Walker, Stones, KDB. You can't just keep losing all your experienced players. We won't lose all of them, of course, but that would be, if Laporte goes, Mahrez goes, Gundo, Bernardo goes, that's 4 more very experienced players. Even add Cancelo to that, you know, he was part of the squad at the start. Eventually, you can't keep, what's it called, chipping off the top of the age group. You know, at some point, you've got to be the ones in the middle a little bit. So, we won't lose them all, and I do trust us to replace them, Pavel. Like, I actually do. I think we will replace them. But at the same time, you can't lose multiple senior players every year because the young players do need them. You know, we're getting younger, but the young players do need them. You know, like but as long as you bring in a senior, this is why maybe the links to people like Kovacic make sense because Kovacic, like if you're going to lose that much experience, you bring in a Kovacic who's got loads of experience. Kovacic is a multiple Champions League winner, highest level footballer. You know, he absolutely is the kind of guy who would step up and he wouldn't be bothered. As he wouldn't be bothered. Yeah, good. Yeah, I agree, mate, Pavel. So in general, like I understand where Kovacic would make a lot of sense. Cheap, you know, good deal, reliable. We know what he can do. A senior player, professional. Yeah, I agree. Adam, mate. That's the. Did you go to the podcast in the end, mate? By the way, was it good fun? I think that is you, isn't it? I think I always get it is you, isn't it, mate? Adam, it is you, Stat City. If it is to you, by the way, man, you should change your username to Stat City, even if it's just an account that you don't post any videos on. You should do it, man. Just for brand recognition and all that. Why do you think there've been so few winger links? I don't know, Griffin, but in general, like, there's not always links to players. City are quite discreet for these things, aren't they? They're not always the most open with their bids for players, and sometimes it can come out of nowhere. Like Ruben Diaz came out of nowhere when we couldn't get Koulibaly and the other one, Jules Koundé. So in general, like City have a list of players for every position. They're not stupid. They do their work, and it's the reason City have won a treble and won all these awards because City are absolutely always ahead of the game and they know exactly where to be. So I trust them to have the backup players there. I just don't know who they are. Kulusevski would be great. I'd like him. Kulusevski, I think he'd hit his Spurs form and then more. His Spurs pre-season for last form and more. It could be Chiesa. You know, it could be a Diaby type. It could be that Turkish lad, is it Arda Güler, whoever he's called? I don't know. I have no idea. It could be Havertz has been linked, which is interesting. That's an interesting one, you know. I don't know who it could be, but what I do know is that largely I just trust this City side. Like, I know it sounds really basic, but I do trust them to get it right. My general view on transfers is that there's a whole bunch of players in world football who probably not whole, but there's a lot more than you realise, I would say, are good enough to be very good under Guardiola. I think all you need is technical ability and then focus. And there's so many players, I think, in general, that don't realise how good they can be because they haven't got a manager as good as Guardiola. That's how I feel. I think, like, I don't think it's just a couple of players. There's more than we realise that could be better. I really believe that, for example, all of a sudden, if take Kai Havertz, he looks like a very decent player at Chelsea. I think he'd be way better at Man City. I think Chiesa, for example, at Juventus, way better at Man City. I really believe this is how it works. I think just in general, Guardiola just makes plays better. So I think as long as you've got technical ability and the right attitude, I think they'll tend to do pretty well. But we'll have a plan. We'll have a plan. I don't think you're going to win a treble and get £300 million in, transfer money not transfer money, prize money, sorry, and not reinvest it. Would I take Kai Havertz? I wouldn't take Kai Havertz, no, personally. Like, I don't think he would be a good signing for Manchester City. Like, I don't think he's I don't think not a good signing. I don't think he's a needed signing. If he came in, would I trust that City had a plan and he'd be good enough? Yeah. If Kai Havertz came in, would I be disappointed? No. Would I do it? I wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't be disappointed because I'd be like, well, I trust City. City have probably got a plan for him, and I think he's a good enough technical footballer. So yeah, I'm not going to clamour for it, but I wouldn't be disappointed. Look, there's barely any players that City could sign that I wouldn't think. Like, if you even look at, do you remember linked to the fella from Leverkusen, Aston Villa? Forgot his name. Leon Bailey. Bailey. Like, even him, I don't think he's a great player, but I think at City he would have been a way better player. I think it's just how it is. You know, I think he's a decent player, but would have been a better. There's so many players basically like that where you just got to sort of trust that the step up would be good. Stephen, is Nadal higher rated by City than Borges and Mabude? Jake, I don't know the answer. I couldn't tell you. But what I do know is that Joel Nadal is very highly rated, and I think he's got an incredible amount of ability. Fingers crossed he gets a chance to show it. Louis, my man, says with a super chat, says Mbappe would be on another level, but it won't happen. I mean, yeah, my view of Mbappe is I think he's a knobhead. Unfortunately, I don't really like his attitude, but as a player, phenomenal, mate. Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But I guess it's weird with Mbappe because he's so good. But at the same time, you're like, the squad balance is incredible and you got to lose a bit of that potentially. But maybe not. Maybe not. You know, maybe Guardiola could be the one to get him to actually fulfill his potential, you know. Maybe he could do, Louis. I don't know. It's not going to happen, by the way, but I'll say from Palace, I like a lot. I think I like Aberiche Eze as well. I like Abe Eze. You know, I think he's a quality player. I think Palace have got some really skillful midfielders. You know, I'll say he's just he's a great example of a technical, brilliant player that under Guardiola would just become probably world class. It's funny because that could be a sliding doors moment for a player of that quality. I always think, imagine a young Zaha with Guardiola. Zaha 4 or 5 years ago. I know he's on a free transfer now, but I think if Guardiola got him, after a year or two, how good he'd be. I do believe there's so many players like Riyad Mahrez, not Riyad Mahrez, like Zaha or Olasey, where they got so much talent, but if they don't get the right move at the right time, they could always stay at that similar level where actually could be treble winners like Jack Grealish is right now. Like if Grealish hadn't made this move, and eventually could have ended up somewhere else, maybe like a Spurs or whatever, and maybe never actually become a treble winner. Maybe won anything of any note. You know, at Spurs you wouldn't win anything. So, but that's a sliding doors moment, isn't it? It's a sliding doors moment, but I don't mind this rumor. I guess the way I see this rumor for Mahrez is it makes sense for everyone involved. I don't mind. It's not ideal, but if City can make an awful lot of money, it's an awful lot of money on a guy who's 32 years old and has only got a couple of years left on his contract, and he also isn't currently a starter for this City team. I love him to bits, but I get it, and I respect it. Like, he could make stupid money personally, and you got to respect his right to earn that money as well. Like, this is not set your family up. This is set your kids' family up as well kind of money. This is gonna a Mahrez dynasty, you know, like, and that is tempting, especially when you've got a young family, which he has got a young family, you know. I don't blame him. But anyway, guys, just a quick video to chat about it. I am going to jump off there because it's very late here and I'm absolutely exhausted, but I wanted to quickly chat to you guys anyway. If you haven't already, go watch the video I recorded earlier with Asan. It's absolutely a banger of a podcast, I promise you. Me and Asan just bitching about the world, Burton like mad over the treble and talking transfers and talking everything else. It's good fun, I promise you. Go listen to it. And once again, before I go, Manchester City won the treble in a bit.